Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Brittany Stanton, and I am a education specialist at Foundations Inc. And we are just so excited to welcome you to today's Beyond the Conference webinar series. Joining me today is actually my colleague, fellow education specialist, Chaz Sumners, and we'll get to hear from him momentarily. But before we do that, I do want to just share with you a little bit about our what Foundations does and kind of what we're all about. So we are a national education nonprofit located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and our mission is to improve the quality of education by building the skills of educators like yourselves. We work across the school day with after school programs, schools, districts, and states to create a brighter future for every child every day. If you're interested in learning more about Foundations, you can follow us on social media, and I'll drop those into the chat for you in a moment. You may already know us from our signature professional learning experience, the Beyond School Hours Conference, which is held each year in February. And in 2025, just around the corner, we're going to be back in Orlando, Florida, that Sunshine State, from February 13th to the 16th. And we'd love to have you as our guest. Now, I do want to take a moment and have Chaz share a little bit about who he is and his work here at Foundations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brittany. And thank you all once again for joining us. So I'm Chaz Sumners. I'm a TA liaison and ed specialist here at Foundations. And I've worked in a bunch of different positions in out of school time, in addition to teaching for 11 years, English and special ed. My English people, feel free to shout out in the chat. When I worked in out of school time programs, I had the opportunity to work my way through like basically every position there. I was frontline staff, site coordinator, all the way up to project or program director. And so it gave me a unique opportunity to sort of familiarize myself with a lot of the different challenges and a lot of the different joys that come with running an after school program. So I'm just happy today to jump in here and get started talking about some fun ways that we can help build that family engagement and really get families interested and passionate about what we're doing here in our after school programs.
Great, Chaz. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about yourself. We're excited to dive in, but just before we do that, so that everybody knows, this webinar is being recorded and will be archived on our website and on YouTube so that you'll be able to access it later. Now, let's jump into some content.
Absolutely. So, um, today, the title of our presentation is Enhancing Family Engagement in Out of School Time Programs Using Effective Tools and Strategies. So, we're going to explore how you can use specific tools to strengthen family engagement in your programs, which is ultimately going to lead to better outcomes for the children that you're serving. So, let's take a look at the different ways that we can do that. But before we dive into that, let's hear from you guys in the chat, right? Let's hear about what you guys think about when you think about family engagement versus family involvement and what the differences between those things are. I know, in some of the programs that I've had the pleasure of being in, you have a huge gamut of family involvement. So you have parents that they just see you as a service, and so they're not particularly tuned into what you're doing. You'll have programs where sure families are tuned into what you're doing, but they might not really want to get involved or really roll up their sleeves and jump in. And then you have those programs where There are constantly families there, they're helping programming, they're providing resources. So it sort of runs a gamut. So why don't you guys share in the chat just some thoughts about what you've experienced when it comes to family engagement versus family involvement. I know it's difficult, particularly gauging like what is engagement versus involvement. So when we think about what's really useful to create the definition between those two things, just think about the families actually participating in your program versus being knowledgeable about your program. I like that. An ongoing relationship, sort of making sure there's all that communicating. Um, when we see Julie saying to me, it's they're aware, they're communicating with their children and teachers, but not really active, right? And then involved means that they're participating, they come in and volunteer, they do just like little fun things. And it doesn't ever have to be huge, but still, those little things, they really add up and they really help contribute to your program. All right. So thank you guys for sharing. Let's jump in and talk about why family engagement is so important. So, family engagement's a crucial component of educational success. Um, the research shows that when families are engaged with their children's education, students achieve more, they exhibit more positive behaviors and attitudes, and they feel more comfortable in the school. So today, we're going to go over a few tools that are going to help you in your out of school time program enhance that family engagement, right? Tools that are designed to provide you with actionable strategies that really will help you foster those connections and have long-term valuable connections with your families. Getting that really good feedback so that you can continue to improve your program and serve the needs of your families and build that trust within the community. So as we go through, we're going to provide a detailed overview of each tool, how it functions, and practical steps for how you can implement them. So let's dive in. So first, like we were saying before, family engagement is a crucial component, right? And so when families feel like they are more engaged, they feel like they have more buy-in when it comes to what their families are doing and what they're experiencing or what their children are experiencing. So, a great way to figure out how families view your program is by implementing what's called a family engagement survey. And so we have this handy dandy family engagement survey tool that we're going to provide for you here in the chat. And it gives you just a framework to work off of. And of course, modify this for the needs of your program, but you're looking at, different questions regarding your particular program and the services that you provide. Everything from, why did you enroll your child in this program to what do you like about the after school program? Do you feel that your children are safe in the school day and during the after school program? Things like that. Yeah, and we provide it in the PDF and the Word doc so that you can customize the Word doc to whatever your needs are. So, just as a little aside, let's have a little poll here. So, we're going to have a little poll about um, family engagement and family surveys in general. So, let's take a look at our questions here and take a moment to fill it out. Because honestly, these family surveys aren't necessarily something that you think of, particularly because you're seeing these families every day, right? So if you're lucky, you're having little micro conversations with them. So you might think, oh, we don't really need to, send out a survey, or it might not even occur to you to do so. But you'd be surprised just the kind of in-depth feedback you get when you give families a chance to go home, think about what your program provides to them and what it could also provide that could be better, and then put those thoughts down on paper and bring them back. So I'll give you guys a couple more seconds to fill out that survey. And then we check out the results. All right, so let's see here. Do you conduct family surveys? We got about 67% of people that do. So awesome. Those 33% of you that don't, I mean, like I was saying, it might not occur to you, it just might not be one of those things that you thought of actually implementing in your program. If yes, are you happy with your completion rates? Ooh, we got a 50-50%. Okay. Yep. And then this is what we expect, right? Because sometimes, we give parents something to go fill out and we don't hear back. Or we just get very like one word answers, things like that. Kind of, I don't want to say it, but I will, kind of like when you give a student an assignment and sometimes you get it back and you're like, oh, these are supposed to be full sentences. Thank you very much. So, if yes, what kind of questions are you asking? Satisfaction of the programming, climate and culture, activity and feedback, safety, and then, various other questions. Okay, so we've got sort of a nice spread of different questions, which is good because you want to ask about a bunch of different elements of your program, not just one. And now, if not, why not? Dissemination challenges. Yeah, getting the information to your parents in any meaningful way, very difficult. Um, Concerned about the poor response rate? Sure. Maybe we did it once and we got nothing back. So it's like, okay, well, why am I, going to put myself out there again just to get crickets and tumbleweeds, right? But um, turns out like the more you do it, the more sometimes families will see, oh, okay, well, they really do care about our feedback. It's not just a one and done thing where they're checking a box. They really want to know how we're doing, or it doesn't seem relevant at this time. Well, I mean, I can understand that, but I would argue that surveys give you an opportunity for continuous improvement, and continuous improvement is always relevant. So I think that's a good way to think about it. Okay, thank you guys so much for your responses. That was really helpful. Let's go ahead and move on to how we go ahead and implement a family engagement survey. So, in order to implement a family engagement survey effectively, you want to follow these steps. We want to make sure that we're customizing the survey, right? So you want to tailor the questions to align with your program's needs and goals. And when you're doing that, you want to consider what information is going to be most valuable to you, so that you can really design those questions accordingly. And that template that we provided you, the Word document format of it, like we were saying, that makes it really easy to customize that. So you don't even have to worry about creating it, doing the formatting, because I'm not creative in that way. So I always love a good template. Next, you're going to want to choose your distribution method. So we were talking about challenges with distribution, right? So sometimes it might be easier for parents to be able to access something online. So you give them like a QR code to fill out an online survey, something like that. Or sometimes it can be a really quick survey when you're just having that conversation at pickup time with a parent, you know? Or if you have somebody that's sort of dedicated to, meeting your parents at the door and then radioing in whatever this kid needs to get picked up, that'd be a great place for them to do that kind of thing, just like some casual questions. But there are also going to be times where a paper based version of the survey is going to be the most effective, because you can make sure you put it in their hand, you can make sure you collect it back, and it's something that they don't need technology to access. Next, you're going to make sure that you're setting a timeline. So you're going to want to establish a clear timeline for distributing the survey, right? And for collecting the responses. So when you distribute it, say like, we need all responses in by, a certain date. You don't want to just leave that open-ended because then you're going to get this trickle effect, and then you're not going to get really representative data. So these periods could be something like, beginning of the program, mid-year, end of the year, do something like that to capture the changes in the program. So I always liked implementing a couple different surveys throughout the year just to see um, how the feelings of families change throughout the year about the program. And then once you get all that back, it's time for the fun part. You get to analyze the results, right? You get to crunch that data. You get to identify trends and look for areas of improvement. this gives you the opportunity to look for sort of those common themes and the common feedback notes that you might be hearing from parents. Because then you're like, oh, well, I've heard that from four, five, six. Oh, that's 10 parents that are saying that now. Yeah, this definitely looks like an area where we need to, inform our program development. And then, this is really crucial. You want to communicate the findings with not just your staff, which is also valuable because you need to make sure that your staff know what your families are thinking and feeling about their experience at the program. But it's also really helpful to share those findings with families. It fosters a sense of transparency, but it also fosters a sense of collaboration with your families, which is great, particularly if you don't have a lot of family involvement. That collaboration, like building that sense of collaboration, makes it feel like, oh, okay, we're all in this together. It takes a village, so let me go lend a hand. um and then it lets you know how you want to plan and address any concerns and improve your program based on the feedback that you've gotten. Because once you communicate those results, then you'll get like this weird second round of feedback, particularly from your families, where they'll say, oh, that's cool because I was also thinking A, B, and C. Like, it's cool that you said this, that, and the third, but I was thinking also A, B, and C could be useful for improving this particular aspect. So it's great. It's a great way to sort of double up feedback too. And then best practices for this kind of thing. Also, we want to talk about making sure that we ensure anonymity so that we make sure that we're getting honest feedback, right? Um, we also want to make sure that the language that we're using is clear and simple, so that everybody is very crystal clear on what we're asking from each question. Because otherwise, you're going to get answers to a question that you didn't actually ask. And you also want to follow up with families about how their feedback's going to get used. So you say, hey, after we get these surveys, we're going to go over the results and we're going to use them to inform programming, for the upcoming year, or if it's like a mid-year survey, for the rest of the year, something like that. It's just important to remember that the goal is to create sort of a feedback loop where families feel heard, and then they see the concerns that they might express reflected in the tangible changes in your program. So let's take a look at another very helpful tool when it comes to engaging our families. 5 outside of the box ways to engage your families, because family surveys are great, right? But it's sort of a boilerplate thing. It's something that a lot of people, know about and think of. So this second tool that we have here provides you with 5 ways that you might not think of, sort of innovative methods to boost that family engagement beyond the traditional parent-teacher conference kind of paradigm. Um, so let's explore each method in some detail right now. So we have things like home visits. Home visits build personal connections with families by having staff visit students at their homes. This approach helps in creating trust and understanding the needs of the student better because you see where they live and you see what they actually need. Um, Home visits, when you have the opportunity to schedule home visits, I know not every program has this kind of flexibility, but you can schedule them at the beginning of the program. And then for sort of your high need families, it could also be useful to sort of schedule a periodic, revisit so that you can, just check in and see how everybody's doing. One of my favorite ways to engage families is a parent cafe. It's basically a safe space for caregivers to just come and connect and share their experiences. So, I mean, that can be parents, it can be guardians, it can be anybody. It can even be, teachers that are still there from the school day and they just want to come in and chat. Like once I started my parent cafe and we had like, some free coffee and like little assorted snacks or whatever, you'd be surprised just how much communication you're also building not just in your program, but between families and their school day teachers too. Um, it lets you, and then you can sort of you can organize it as regular meetings. They can be monthly, quarterly, or whatever. We eventually got to the point in my program we were doing them monthly, and then sort of theming them for different things. It was like we had a little PTO that put together some really cool stuff. Because again, I'm not creative; my stick figures come out crooked, but I love the creative people in my life. Um, and then doing this kind of thing on a regular basis, it fosters that peer support and it builds a sense of community among all of your family. So it's not just like fit each family individually interacting with you, but it's all of us interacting together. Virtual parent cafes. No, I haven't actually. That's a really cool idea. I love that. It'd be cool to everybody sits and has their own like little cute coffee mug and their own comfy clutch in their house as we all talk about, the joys and challenges of, you know, childcare and working with our young ones. I like that idea quite a bit, Julie. Thank you. Another really great idea is sort of a doorstep dialogue or bus chauffeurs. So this can look like a bunch of different ways, but uh, essentially it's staff members taking the bus home with students. And that provides them with an opportunity to engage with families who don't come to the program site. So if you have uh, a program where you have students that are bused in from different locations to yours, this is a great way for you to be able to interact with those families that you don't normally get a chance to see. It helps overcome problems like transportation barriers, and it makes it easier to connect with busy parents. It's a really good way, and it also, I'm not gonna lie, it also gives you a really useful opportunity to connect with the students in your program in a different way than you do in your program space, because you'd be surprised just how like silly in a reasonable way they can be when they're on the bus that they aren't in your program space sometimes. Another great way is hosting events in community spaces like parks and community centers, libraries, that make it easier for families to participate. We hosted some reading events partnered with a local library, and that was really cool. And our local community center actually let us have a large potluck because we didn't have the space in our program to do a potluck. So we were able to partner with the local community center and do a really fun potluck too. So those are just great ways for you to be able to meet with people, and you're not in program mode. Because sometimes when you're in your program space, families and you feel like you're in program mode. But when you're hosting an event beyond your program walls, it sort of just removes that barrier and opens up a convenient way for you to have real meaningful conversations. And I mean, these events don't have to be academic at all. They can be social, like I was saying, like the potluck. It, you also want to make sure that you're scheduling times that are convenient for your family. So that's another great thing to put in your family surveys at the beginning of the year so that you can gauge what windows of time are good for the largest portions of your family. And I mean, it might be the case that you have to, hold it a couple times at on a couple of different occasions at different times, I should say, just so that we're able to reach the largest portion of our families. Another really great idea is STEM at home, right? So you provide these fun little STEM kits for students to complete with their families. And they pick them up when they pick their kids up one day. And it's just a fun little kit that they work on. And you have a range of experiences when the families come back. You have some families and they'll come back and they'll have this really cool finished project that they've added all of these bells and whistles onto. And then I've had families that come back and it's just like the box, but it rattles a bunch, and it's like, uh-oh, looks like we had some issues when it came to the STEM kit. But still, it was a really fun experience, and it was a way for us to help foster a positive experience with the family at home. So again, all of these are detailed in the handout that's provided in the chat for 5 outside the box ways to engage families. So let's go on and take a look really in depth at each of these different methods. So home visits. When we're implementing home visits, you sort of want to look at you want to follow a certain process, right? You want to make sure that one, you're identifying families who might need additional support or have been less engaged in your program in general. Oh, wait. Oh, there's no handout in the chat? Oh, sorry. Yeah, we will drop the. Oh, yes, it is. Wait, there should be a PDF up there in the chat. There we go. We just redropped it. Yeah, so when it comes to the process of doing home visits, you want to make sure that you're identifying families who would benefit the most. So you're focusing on those, like I was saying, that don't might not be regularly attending your program or just feel less engaged in general. You want to schedule those at a convenient time, so you coordinate with those families individually, and you want to keep in mind things like their work schedule or their other commitments. You also want to prepare discussion points and materials ahead of time because I mean you're going there and it is like a chat, but you're not going there just to chat about miscellaneous topics, right? Like you're going there to inform them about the awesome things that their students or their kids are doing in your program and to figure out like what ways that you could help and, be even more impactful for that individual family. So, you also want to make sure that you're bringing things like information about the program or maybe resources that you want to share with that family in particular, which is another really great way to foster family engagement. Like, if you know a certain family needs something, oh, okay, well, this family needs a dentist or whatever. You go to that home visit with a list of dentists that the family could, perhaps patronize. And then you want to follow up, right? After that visit, you want to maintain that relationship by phone calls, emails, additional visits. There are a bunch of different ways to do that, but you want to make sure that the family knows that it's not just a one and done interaction with you. Um, and of course, right? It should go without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You want to make sure that you're approaching the visits with empathy and openness, right? No assumptions. You want to go in there and you want to respect the family privacy and the cultural differences. As long as you're adhering to those rules, these family visits go very smoothly. And it can be a really rewarding experience for everybody. And it's just important to keep in mind that what you really want to do is build trust, right? That's what you're doing. You're building trust with the families and you're establishing strong partnerships with them. So now let's talk about what parent cafes could look like, right? So we did a little overview of it, but let's do a deep dive. So we're considering spaces that are accessible and comfortable for families. You're scheduling meetings at times that are convenient for families, even if you have to schedule several different meetings at different times. You're also developing a welcome and inclusive development, right? So you want it to be a safe space for everybody. And this can be done in a bunch of different ways. You can provide refreshments. You can offer childcare during the meeting. That was a big hit for me when it came to my parent meeting. It's like, oh, okay, well, you can come and we can watch, your other kiddos too, while we're all having a discussion about the program and how we can, make it better. And you also want to make sure that the space is physically accessible. Not something that we always think about, but something that is always important. You also want to facilitate discussion around relevant topics because it's easy for this to like go off the rails and to just be like a fun social hour, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we want to make sure that we are still highlighting the incredible things that you're doing in your program and the benefit that you're providing for the family. So you want to choose topics that are of interest, and you also want to talk about it gives you an opportunity to also explore topics that can help with children's development. So you can do things like discussions about the child, like brain development, things like nutritional programs, educational strategies, or it could just be like a cool workshop on a community resource. And I, it seems silly, but offer refreshments. I think we all know that food is a great motivator when it comes to bringing people in, even if it's just like something little, right? And while people are munching or sipping on something, it also I feel like they feel more open to dialogue and like sharing those experiences because you're sharing food with somebody. So it automatically makes you feel like you're more connected to that person. So you're more likely to share, like different experiences or just open up in general to them. In general, the goal of these parent cafes is to create a supportive community where we can all learn from each other and we can feel connect and everybody feels connected to the program. So let's talk about how we do events beyond the program walls. So, events do not always need to be held at school, right? Um, Great places to hold sort of like cool events that are outside of your program. Could be parks if you have access to it. If you're like a beach, that could be cool. Community centers, even churches, right? Churches are great resources that I think often don't get explored, but they often have really useful spaces when it comes to having events or communities, you know, or hosting the community. Um, you really want to make sure that you're having events in spaces where families can not just get to, but where like they feel safe and they feel comfortable. Because again, that's going to help facilitate communication. Having if you hold an event at an alternative location, it can also make people feel because some families don't feel safe when it comes to the school environment. Unfortunately, like that's just a hard truth, right? So sometimes when you hold these events in some place other than school, you're holding them in a place where they do feel safe and they do feel more comfortable opening up to you. So that's also something to think about. And we have a bunch of ideas on screen here, just incredible, really fun activities. I always love a good food and culture fair because that's how I keep my plus size model figure. I enjoy art workshops because, again, even though I'm not super creative, if I'm doing something that nobody's ever done before, nobody knows I'm doing it wrong, right? So it's like, like, we're all experiencing it together. And of course, the English teacher in me loves a good book reading session. I used to like doing just like a story time in general, like just like a story time hour. And then you can couple that with a parent cafe too, which is really cute idea. Sort of hot cocoa during the winter. So, STEAM, STEM at home. So, when we talk about, STEAM, STEM, of course, we're talking about science, technology, engineering, math. Um, and these things allow these little like kits or whatever that we projects that we send home with their students allow them to explore those interests with their family in a way that they might not be able to do with the school day curriculum. One of the biggest benefits that I see when it comes to out of school time programming and academic enrichment is the ability to work outside the curriculum. Because, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have, or some of us have been teachers, or we know teachers, and we know that sometimes the curriculum can sort of bind your hands. There are things that you want to teach or ways that you want to teach something that you can't because you're supposed to do it this way. But out of school time does not have those barriers, right? So you can do a lot more creative and fun things that are sort of extracurricular, if you will. Um, it's a really cool way to also make sure that you're meeting the needs of your students because in your student surveys you can ask what topics could be really useful for those STEAM STEM at homes. Also, doorstep dialogues. Doorstep dialogues are incredible ways for you to be able to connect with parents in a way that you wouldn't be able to do in your program. So again, staff members take the bus home with the students. They meet their families where they are, right? At home, providing opportunities to speak with these caregivers who you wouldn't really be able to engage with in the program space. Um, if it's possible, the best thing to do is to have staff members take turns throughout the year riding the bus home with the student, right? Just so that it gives each one of your staff members an opportunity to engage with that family. Sometimes getting caregivers and family members to your physical location can be a huge challenge because of these transportation barriers and limits, time constraints, working parents, things like that. So this is a great way to reach those. It gives you an opportunity to connect with those caregivers face to face when, nothing else seems to be working for you. So now we're curious. Which of these ideas are you interested in trying? Go ahead and use your annotation tool and let us know right here on the screen which of these ideas really intrigues you. Again, these are all super fun things, and so it's almost hard to choose. So I get that. And nobody's saying choose just one. If you want to go ahead and annotate each and every one of those, nobody's stopping you. Live your truth. Okay. Parent cafes, of course. Parent cafes are close to my heart and stomach. Um, and Steam STEM at home is always awesome. And you don't even have to like you can put together those kits on your own, right? It's not something where you necessarily have to spend money if you don't have those resources to go get Steam STEM kits. You could, put little projects together yourself. I remember those books from when I was little that were just like 101 science experiments or whatever, and then getting those books and then just like ruining the kitchen. And my mom being like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "No, it's educational, mom. I promise." So I mean, just those fun moments. All right. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Yeah, I'm glad that this is helpful and that some of those are, seem like they could be helpful in your program. So before we dive into our final tool of the day, we're going to drop another poll here because we want to hear from you about, and it's a tough question, but be honest. Do you feel that families trust your program? Now, again, tough question. And I don't want to say it's okay that it's no, but it is okay because you can always get to yes, right? It doesn't mean like no doesn't mean no forever. It just means there's something that might have happened. There might be some extenuating circumstance where that trust has been eroded, but we can always rebuild that trust. And we're going to talk about how we can do that. So I'm interested to see what these responses are. Hmm. Let's see. Yes, no, could be better. Okay. All right. Yeah. And that sounds about right. It's tricky. It's also difficult sometimes to gauge, whether, how much a family trusts your program. But don't worry, fear not, because we have a wonderful trust building tool here for you that can help you, establish and maintain that trust with these families. So, trust is the foundation of a strong relationship between families and a program, right? It's the key component. Um, so, this tool is, focuses on including understanding family concerns and questions, conducting self-assessments based on the eight pillars of trust by David Horsinger, um, and following practical tips about building and maintaining that trust. So the eight pillars of trust, right? We're talking about clarity. So families are more likely to trust and commit to programs when they have a transparent understanding of program goals and activities. Compassion, right? Compassionate staff addresses the individual needs of a student and creates a supporting and trusting relationship. Character, when staff act with integrity and they're honest, enhances trust, right? Competency, professional development and staying updated on best practices, showing that you're knowledgeable and informed, right? That helps build trust as well. And then we have commitment. So demonstrating that dedication, right, to each individual child's development and well-being. And it shows that your program is stable and reliable. Next, we have connection. So actively engaging with families and creating a sense of community that ensures that everybody involved feels valued and included. Now, contribution, delivering meaningful outcomes and positive results that demonstrate that the program has value and is effective. And last but not least, consistency, right? Reliable, predictable actions and decisions from staff that create a stable environment, building confidence and trust over time. So let's talk about what we do to actually build that trust. So we have our handy dandy trust building tool, and it includes several key steps. One, we're going to conduct a trust self-assessment with your staff, right? So this part of the assessment, it helps you evaluate the level of trust that your families have in your program. And this is where you're going to focus on those eight pillars and sort of provide insight into each one of those areas. You talk with your staff first about that to see how they feel, right? To see what their sense of that trust is. Then you're going to look at the score for each pillar to identify where your program excels and where you could do a little better. Now, this analysis is going to help you understand the specific areas of your program that are actually affecting trust, right? Because it might not be that every aspect of your program is contributing or, you know, eroding that trust. You also want to develop action plans based on the assessment findings, right? So you want to, after you have this data, you want to create targeted strategies that address each of these areas of improvement. For example, if clarity is an issue, if that's the pillar that you feel like you need to add some more support to, you might focus on improving communication about what your program's goals and activities and objectives are, right? And then you're going to want to implement the strategies to build trust, right? So you're going to use the practical tips that we have provided in this tool that we dropped in the chat to enhance trust across all of these areas. Some examples of this might include training staff on empathy and how to, be active listeners. That's a great one. Um, Improving transparency when it comes to decision making and ensuring consistency. That's another great one. And so our best practices for this are, making sure that we regularly revisit and we update those trust building strategies. So, practical tips for building trust. We have listening, right? We want to create opportunities for families to share their voices. This can be through discussion groups, focus groups, family surveys, but most importantly, it's through personal conversations that you're having with the families. Those little incidental conversations that you're having. Um, those are great times to just be an active listener to what your families are saying, not interrupting them, just listening, acknowledging their perspective, and making sure that they feel heard in the moment. Representation and allyship, right? We want to reflect the community's diversity in our staff. So we want to include diverse perspectives in our program. We want to utilize community resources to support that diversity and inclusion efforts. And when hiring, we want to look for qualified candidates who also reflect the community that they serve, right? Effective communication. We want to maintain clear and consistent communication throughout whatever channels you're using. It might be email, it might be social media, it might be in-person meetings, but regardless, you want to ensure that your communications are accessible by providing things like translations and using that plain, simple language. You want to establish consistent communication schedules so that families know when to expect these updates. Empathy, right? Understand and share the feelings of others, something we could all use a little more, particularly now. When listening to concerns, you want to express empathy by acknowledging their feelings, right? And validating their experiences. Provide that emotional support and comfort during these difficult times. Building relationships. You want to foster those personal connections through regular interactions, right? Hosting those family events, right, that we were talking about, where parents, children, staff can interact and sort of informally build those relationships. You want to make sure that you're maintaining regular contact, not just when there are issues. You know, I always loved making sure that you're saying positive, you're checking in with parents in a positive way, most times, so that when you may have to check in with them in a negative way, at least that's not the only interaction that they feel like they've had with you. Realism. We want to set achievable goals and be honest about with what's within our capacity, right? We want to make sure that we're not over promising. We want to make sure that we're avoiding making promises that are hard to keep. And we want to work collaboratively with all the people involved in our community to find solutions to their concerns. Uh, you also want to clearly communicate the reasons and decisions, well, the reasons behind your decisions and any limitations that you might have. Like, hey, listen, this is why we can't do this, and I'm sorry, but it's just not something that's within our capacity. And then we want to make sure that we're following up, right? Showing reliability by following through on commitments, responding to inquiries and concerns in a timely manner, and providing updates on the status of issues or requests. You want to check back with families after you resolve an issue too. That's a really good one, to make sure that there aren't any further concerns, or if there are, how to address those. This is another great place where surveys or feedback forms can be used to gather those insights, and get that input to see that you're improving your program. So, as we start to wrap up here today, we have a little video that we'd like to share that calls us back to our first thought for the day. How's family engagement different than family involvement? So here we have Jessica Solano, who was Florida's Teacher of the Year in 2017. So let's take a look at how she views family engagement and how she does it differently.
I never had a teacher come to my house before. One time she popped up to two of my friends' houses and she came with chocolate chip cookies that she made by herself. It's really cool.
I'm not sure if it works in the way. Hey, going this way? Okay. So Makayla has been keeping track of some of her work this year. So she wants to kind of go through and share that with you and kind of let you see some of her goals for school. So you want to start off with Module 1?
On Module 1, I got a 45. Module 2, I got a 35. Then Module 3, I got a 78.
The reason we do this is because if I just see, oh, it's a 78C, I might think, oh, that's really not that great. But looking at where she came from, that is incredible. I was so proud of you. Ever since I first started teaching, I remember seeing families come in for parent-teacher conferences. Seeing the child next to their family member just made things different. They belonged to someone, and they were someone's whole world. I feel responsible as their teacher to have that open line of communication with their families. I want them to see that. I love you more than I can tell you, and I want to show that in my actions. Hey, Easton. Walking. I used to think family engagement was the same as parent involvement, and I've learned recently that that is not the case. Changing involvement to engagement is huge because being involved in something, there's not a real sense of commitment, where when you're engaged in it, you're taking a stake in this, and it matters to you what the outcome is. Class. Yes. Mirror. Out here in the air are all those molecules like we talked about. In order for families to really make an impact on their students' performance, they really need to not only know what is expected of them, but they need to know where their kids are at in meeting that expectation and how to get them there. And I don't think what I was doing in the past with newsletters and having parents come and volunteer in my class was meeting those goals. Technology really helps a lot with engaging families. I've started doing Facebook Live. That has really been powerful in helping those families who especially can't come during the day to sit into a classroom lesson. Welcome, everybody. We've been doing some pretty tricky stuff in math, something called distributive property. It is really easy. I took home some chart paper from school and I wrote down a few problems, just set up my iPad and bam, we're live. It's more than me just telling them I have a daughter. It's more than me just telling them we got a new cat. This is me letting them come into my life and my house. And so it kind of just helps make that connection a little bit stronger. Bye, guys. Have a great night. Thanks for joining us. See ya. This year for me, I feel like because I put so much stake into family engagement, I know other things have kind of fell by the wayside. You would have to be absolutely perfect to be able to get every single thing right in education. So I think it's okay to understand that we're all growing. Building relationships isn't easy. I have to fight every single day to build that relationship with my husband. I have to work every day to build a relationship with my kids and my coworkers. And so that's something I think I see with my students. I would love for it to be easy to build relationships with them, but nothing worthwhile ever is. I want them to really, truly believe that they are capable of doing whatever they set their mind to, that it's going to take hard work, it's going to take practice. It makes me excited to know that I am not alone in this and that their families are there and we're all helping develop this child who hopefully will be a better person because of this experience.
Love that. It's incredible to see how impactful it is actually in practice, right? And I also love the idea of being able to involve virtual components. If you can't do doorstep visits or something like that, FaceTime could be an option for you. There could be something like that. If you have a social media with your out of school time program, you could just have little stories about cool things that you guys are doing, just as a different way for parents to be able to check in with them asynchronously, right? Like if they're on a weird schedule, it still gives them a way to feel like, they're informed about the program. So, that being said, we would like to take a moment and ask you guys, after everything we've talked about today, what has inspired you today to increase family engagement in your program? So go ahead and comment in the chat boxes. I know we've covered a bunch of different stuff, but okay, and I already see Julie saying, "Yep, that idea that it's progress, not perfection." Right? Family engagement is always going to be about an improvement process, right? It's never, oh, we have perfect family like engagement and involvement. Everybody is locked in and helping out all of the time. No, of course it's a process, and in order to make sure that we are continuously improving with that progress, we need to have those useful check-ins, things like little conversations, surveys, things like that. I think um, also just seeing how, like, that huge smile on the little girl's face in the video, just like when the teacher is able to communicate just how much progress that student has made individually, I think that was so much more impactful than just saying, oh, okay, good job, here's a sticker. Yeah, thinking outside the box, right? I love that idea of just finding different innovative ways to reach your families. Yeah, how to engage with and invite families and get them, more engaged in your child's activities, right? Because the more involvement you have with your families, the better your program is going to be, right? They're another resource for your program, and that's something that it's important to keep in mind. Um, and so not just are they a resource, right, but they're also the people that we serve. So that's why the continuous like sort of feedback loop is so important. Yeah, right. Then this is the best use of technology to engage families. I love the idea of being able to not just, I mean, sometimes the way to reach families is through just surveys on paper, things like that. But in, this bright new future of ours, there are plenty of other ways that we can use to reach families that, don't necessarily respond to the traditional venues of communication. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your feedback.
Wow, Chaz. You know, there's just so many good vibes about some of these ideas. And the only thing I would add is like, it's one step at a time. Like, I'm so excited by all these things. Of like, I want to do all of them, but start with one and see how it goes. There's a lot of ideas and things that we've dropped in the chat and that we've talked about today. And so whatever resonates with you the most or you think is like where you should be spending your time, try that first and see if it works for your program and for your families. But as we kind of get close to the end of our time today, a couple little things. If you could please provide us some feedback on today's webinar, there's a link in the chat for you to let us know how you felt about today's session. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention again that Beyond School Hours conference is just around the corner and
Getting
will be
closer.
in. I know, it's so crazy how close it is, and it's going to be in Florida. So check it out. If you haven't attended before, it's going to be a really wonderful conference this year, all centered around amplifying everything education. And you can find out more about the Beyond School Hours conference at our website, which is now in the chat for you as well. So again, please take a moment to provide us some feedback on the feedback form that was dropped. Check us out online. And be sure to go and visit the foundation's website where the tools that we've shared today, as well as some of the tools for the upcoming webinars in January that we'll be hosting, will be available on our website if you want to check those out. For those who are in need of a certificate of attendance, just know that a certificate of attendance will be sent within a week to everyone who attended this event live. And so we'll hope you'll join us for our next session, which I am remiss, I don't remember the topic, but we'll be doing another toolkit.
Yeah.
So please join us. It'll be in January after the turn of the new year. Check out our website for more details on all of that. And actually, if you give me a second, I'll stop sharing my screen. I might be able to pull it up real quick for everyone here so that you know what's going on. Yeah, here we go. All right, so in the chat for you now is the link to our website, the direct page for the upcoming webinar series. And so January 8th is going to be breaking the box, redefining after schools. And so we'll talk about things like, we don't necessarily have to fit into a traditional model because OST is so unique compared to school day. And so doing programming that is kind of outside of the box, programs that might be late programs, 7 to 9 p.m. or programs on the weekends. And so we'll be looking at, how can we leverage youth voice and choice to be able to amplify what we're doing in our after school programs and kind of redefine what that looks like for us. Chaz, I want to thank you for presenting and sharing all this wonderful information with us today. It was very informational, and it sounds like those in the chat are also vibing with all the wonderful information. So thank you, Chaz. Thank you to all of our attendees today. We really appreciate you. Be sure you check out our webinar series and the Beyond School Hours Conference. Chaz and I are here for another 2 minutes. If anybody has a question, we're more than happy to chat. But other than that, thank you so much again for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. We'll see you in 2025.
Oh God, it sounds so weird for you to say that. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Feel free to pick our brains for, a minute or two, but if not, happy holidays, everyone.
Oh, that is a good question. Um, if you are interested in meditation can be kind of a hard thing for people to get on board with right away because there's a lot of assumptions about what it is.
Mhm.
But I actually would highly recommend just doing a little research on mindfulness because that's a really great way to kind of introduce some of those similar concepts around meditation. And even though you're not a teacher, it doesn't matter. Anybody can practice mindfulness. And starting, yeah, those small chunks, like
Yeah.
little 5-minute practices that you can implement, and thinking about how you can do that, paired with transition times so that students moving from space to space can acclimate to whatever that next activity is, maybe in a more um, calm manner if it's like a high energy thing, or maybe you just need kids to focus more. I implemented this in programming that I ran, which was a music-based program, and we would do mindfulness before rehearsal, and the kids were so much more focused just because we spent 5 minutes at the beginning of rehearsal to do a little bit of mindfulness, and that looked like some deep breathing. We did some visualizations, having them close their eyes and just like really centering their body, feeling where their feet were on the floor, things like that. So that's my recommendation of where to start. And it's very easy to just take those little things and implement into programs. Everybody can use a good breathing exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm That's tricky, yeah, especially depending where you are. Some places are, more responsive to, social emotional, like learning stuff, and which mindfulness can also like be paired with. So I can understand that being tricky, yeah. But I think mindfulness is the key. Like that's the gateway to these like sort of deeper uh techniques like meditation and things like that. And it's a great way to approach them, like Brittany was saying, without dealing with like, the connotations that some people might have around something like meditation.
And my biggest recommendation around this would be to, start it within your own practice and collect the evidence that's going to back up why it is making an impact. Um, so that's our recommendations for today. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We are at the end of our session, so we are going to close the webinar now. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next year.
Bye, everyone.